Hey everyone, Jake here from Made for the Range, and today I'm at Golf Tech's headquarters here in Denver, Colorado. I'm joined by Nick Clearwater, who is the SVP of Player Development here. Also happens to be number 17 on the Golf Digest coaches list, so thanks for joining me. We're going to talk about launch monitors a little bit. I'm going to punt to you. We're going to go through the origins of launch monitors a little bit, and then we'll lead up into some testing with the new SkyTrack Plus.
Okay, so we've got a few different ways that launch monitors work today, and they've gone through hundreds of iterations to get here, but you've got photo. You can take pictures of a golf ball, so I might hit a ball from here, passes through SkyTrack Plus's field of view, takes a few pictures, and then the ball itself, those really still images allow you to get really accurate data. That's the best tech. The other tech that you've got is radar. Radar works really well if you can hit a ball and watch it at least to the apex and preferably all the way to the ground. Sure. At that point, you know a lot. Yeah. Where radar is limited indoors, all the way down to, you got the Garmin, TrackMan, and you get a bunch of cool tech. This is all great. But if I hit a ball here, Jake, from here, and it flies and hits the screen, it's possible this golf ball might only rotate less than half of a turn. And for radar to then see that signal, know what to do with it, and be able to accurately tell what axis tilt the ball was spinning on, which is really the holy grail of all of it, and the backspin rate, you can't get awesome data that way. That's why we prefer the SkyTrack Plus indoors for golf tech purposes, and really for just golfer and purposes in general indoors, because the photos just make for a better tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the differences too, like obviously there's big price point differences here. Yeah. The one thing I harp on people a lot, because as we get more into the SkyTrack stuff, and we're going to end up having a setup that I can use to showcase more and more, it's really about the data relative to the monitor that you're hitting on, right? There's a lot of people that get really hung up on the differences between monitors. And I tell people all the time, like, that's not the right way to look at it. If you have a monitor, whatever one you have is going to work for you in the capacity of that monitor. If that monitor says it's lower spin by 500, 600 reps, even if that's not the exact spin coming off of that, if you went to another machine, it's still going to be lower spin. It's not like one's going to read crazy different the other way versus this. I've also noticed that you guys within Golf Tech have been pushing into the SkyTrack Plus because you guys do a lot of updates to SkyTrack Plus for Golf Tech centers. Can you talk about that a little bit as we update the launch monitors consistently to just make them better and better?
Yeah, I think we'll do that a ton. That's one of our biggest advantages, though, and why we really wanted a company like this. I mean, this is the number one selling launch monitor of all time, is the SkyTrack, the OG sitting right here. The Plus is new and improved because it's got some radar advantages in there. We're measuring the club head using radar, the ball with camera, so it's the best tech of both options there. But we also own the software. So now all the software that a user or a golfer or a coach will have is run by people who teach golf for a living. Yeah. Well, we have quite an edge over just developers or executives at other companies that might be making the software or having a big say in it. So that's where our biggest edge is. I think eventually we're going to get to showing you some of the custom ranges that teachers have built already that we use in Golf Tech lessons every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do a follow-up video on that specific category because that has so many different avenues we can rabbit hole down. The other question, just to be fair about the whole simulator market, is a lot of people will ask, why does SkyTrack not work outside on grass? I know the reason and why not to get caught up on that, because A, it's not really built for that. It's built to be a home consumer thing. I know people that have this in a 6-foot space of their garage, and it's really cool because they can go hit balls whenever they want. They don't have to be limited. And then when it's nice out, they just go play golf. They don't need to bring something with them onto grass because they're just going to go play. So dive into that just a little bit, like why this was built the way it was built. Obviously, we have a much lower price point too, which is really cool. And then the home consumer being kind of the focus of the product. How did that lead into the development of what you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. I think that's a perfectly good question to ask, and comes up all the time. We could make this work outside. That development that we would need to go through is pretty extensive, though. So it's not. We just don't think it's really worth it. This is built. You nailed it. For inside, people to hit in their garage or their simulators, or in here, or we use it in Golf Tech lessons. I mean, it's more than capable of doing everything you want. We didn't build it to go stand on the range and see divots flying and in all kinds of different environments, because honestly, I don't see people doing that. I've taught on the PGA Tour for 18 straight years. I see mainly foresights and TrackMans out there. And really, all I've ever really seen a player do with that anyway is see how far the ball went, like total carry distance. That's what they wanted to know. They don't want to know the face and the path and how much backspin did they have on that. That's for a separate time away from the event. While it seems to be, I think, subjectively to people that if it doesn't work outside, it's not good, this has nothing to do with that, truly. This is a great device. It does work outside off of a mat, or if you're going to use a wooden tee, it'll do fine with that.
Yep.
That's really what you need it for anyway.
Perfect. All right, so then let's dive in a little bit. We're going to do some testing with the new SkyTrack Plus. I'm going to have you highlight the new data that we get. The SkyTrack Plus has some upgrades over the OG SkyTrack, mainly in that club head tracking. So really excited to see it. Let's jump into the software, hit a couple balls.
Deal. Okay.
All right, so now we're just going to hit a few balls, and then we're going to go through some of the data. So the new SkyTrack Plus provides a ton of data, especially compared to what I would call other consumer models of launch monitors. And then I'm probably going to get a little bit geeky, ask Nick a couple more specific questions. But yeah, I think let's just hit a few, and then we'll dive into it.
Sounds good. Good? Yeah, this is fun, Jake. I don't get to talk about this stuff enough. This is great.
Well, I think this is the stuff that my audience prefers to kind of dive into.
How was that one?
That's about what I expected.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, we can start with all kinds of data that's on the screen here. So first you've got your launch angle, backspin, and descent angle. When we're doing club fittings at Golf Tech, those are the three variables that we train the coaches on the most and the consumers on the most, because that's really affecting how this ball is how far it's going to go and how it's going to land when it hits the ground. Like I wish descent angle, and I'm sure you do too, was a bigger part of golf vernacular and people understood. Yes. But so if you had to start with three numbers that are really cool, well, now we've got some ranges based on your ball speed that will tell you where those should be for you to hit, not necessarily the optimal shot, but a really good one into the green. Okay. So they're color-coded red, green, and yellow. If you get two of those three numbers into the green, you probably have some clubs that fit you pretty well, like you're ready to go. There are players who have a higher launch, lower spin, and a descent angle that's just about in the green range of 48-ish too. But you might hit a red launch angle like you did there for 21. That's not wrong, but if the other two are green, I like what you're doing.
So if I were to keep hitting, will this learn to and adjust those ranges at all as I'm
every
going
shot?
Through?
So your ball speed is really
it's based
predicting
off of every
that.
single shot.
Yeah,
okay.
every single shot's going to be different.
Wow, okay.
Yep. Then some other parts we've got in here would be the club path and face the target are interesting. So how we do that is unique and some patent pending on some of that work,
sure.
Which is the ball data plus the radar that is capturing the club head speed, then enable us to run some AI and machine learning algorithms that we've used with PhDs that help us with our motion capture system.
Okay, yeah.
So we've done this before. We use it for other parts of our business.
Sure.
Then we can do some machine learning and give you some educated guesses on those. So calculations of the face and the path on every shot. They're within about a degree of the tolerances that Foresight Quad allows for themselves.
Awesome.
And you've got accurate club data without having to have stickers on the club.
Yeah.
You don't have to mark them up. You don't have to have a special device. You don't have to pay extra. It's all just built into the software that way.
And no fancy golf balls either.
No fancy golf balls.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I forget about that.
Yeah, the fancy golf balls gets people because like there's another consumer device too that I actually just recently found out you have to purchase special golf balls for.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that to me it seems so cumbersome because we all know that when you make fancier golf balls too, those ones degrade a lot quicker than a normal golf ball does, so you end up having to replace those
those marking
all the time.
And then they're more expensive because it costs more for those OEMs to make those golf balls, so it is tough. Now in a perfect world, this is exactly what I do. I'd have like 57 markers on that. I'd have 17 cameras in this thing. I'd have a golf ball that had so many markings on it that you couldn't miss. But that isn't practical, and it's super expensive, and it's really annoying, and the user experience would be awful, and it wouldn't give you that much better data. That's just utopia. So what we've got here, I think, is the best of both worlds. You have accurate data for face and path. We don't have angle of attack, dynamic loft. I don't think most people need that anyway.
Sure,
it would be nice to have.
Standpoint,
Again, but and you don't have to have. You have to do a whole lot other than enter what club you're hitting, because that's really what's helping the algorithm pick which model to use to give you the face and path numbers that'll be the most accurate.
Okay. All right. Let me hit another one and try to redeem myself a little bit here. Not sure I want that to be our
first or second shot. It's all right.
Yeah. Well,
everybody's used to.
We get through the day,
right? Yeah.
Oh.
See, this is where the magic of cuts can go. Launch angle of 0.
I was
hard to get good face and path numbers. Nicely done.
That's better.
So you can see all green on the optimizer. You have the face angle aimed almost 4 degrees to the right of the target. That's why the ball pushed 3 degrees. Your club path is slightly in out, only a couple degrees, not quite enough to make it draw to the target. So on this next shot, you could do a couple things. You swing more in out, but keep the face angle still pointed forward to the right. Or you've got to shift your swing direction more to the right, close the face angle some, and the ball will draw more. But every shot you get that kind of data. What you choose to do with it as a consumer is up to you. I would just live on the ball data that's being optimized for the green like you did there. That's a great place to start. But if you're super nerdy or you want to practice curving the ball, then the face the target and the club path itself would be awesome places to look at next.
Yeah, something you said earlier too that I want to just fixate on for a minute is I talk a lot to my audience about why the 1,000 spin per club number is kind of no longer relevant. A lot of that has to do with modern lofts because we're comparing very different lofts to that spin number. But most of it, and you mentioned earlier, is that descent angle. If I drop this ball straight down, that ball had no spin, but it stayed right there. And people don't understand that if you can dial that in, I don't really necessarily care what that spin number is as long as it's manageable. And I think that's something that so many people get fixated on. Like, everybody cares so much about what's the spin, what's the spin, what's the spin. And when you're on a driver, there's a lot of launch conditions and aerodynamics that take place there. I get it. But when you're talking about irons, like, I think it's just so overdone at this point because that was like the internet thing is my 7-iron going at 7,000? Where you can see the range here, it's showing I can get away with anything down to about 6,000 as long as my descent angle remains at the same place. I don't have to worry about it. So can you just speak to a little bit to why you said that earlier? Because I really like that you picked that up and just go a little bit more into detail.
Yeah, well, first, I appreciate the thought on that. Not everybody looks at golf that way. Yeah. That's exactly right. The descent angle, if you want to have a ball land on the ground and stop in a reasonable amount of time, like you would with any kind of iron, up to maybe about a 6-iron, 45 degrees is a good place to start. That's mainly 42 to 48. Oh, it's close enough. You can refine that some more. With a driver, if you want it to roll farther, and you have different choices here depending on the type of golfer you are. If you're your average player, 35 to 40 degrees of descent gives you a ton of roll. If I'm Rory McIlroy, I might want that to land actually at like 50. I'll carry it 320, but I don't want it to roll because I would like to know where it's going to stop and not scoot it through fairways and dog legs that way. Just different ways to use that info. The backspin number itself, the lower that the irons that perform best for bad players tend to spin less and launch lower on average, I would say. That's why it's tougher to get like a 5-iron into the air. But they go farther that way. Now, the better you get and the lower your spin gets, now if you start to tilt the spin axis to the left, your draws start to go pretty far. And now that's why these game improvement clubs for better golfers aren't quite as good. So fixating on spin and trying to get 1,000 RPMs for the club you're at, so 7-iron to spin 7,000 RPMs, that's okay, but really first and foremost, as you mentioned, is the descent angle. Make the ball land on the ground. Not too acute, so that it rolls too far, but not so obtuse that you spin a 9-iron back 15 feet every time. That's not actually good either. Hitting those short clubs where they take one hop forward, stop with a descent angle about 45 is a really precise way to land your irons. And that's honestly the way the best short iron players in the game do it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you guys can see, like, we just had a small rabbit hole conversation of all the data, but the stuff that this is available to a consumer, it's a very cheap setup to get, especially with the entire enclosure that you can now order all at the same time. It's not difficult to get this in-house, and to see all the data and then to start learning through what I'm doing about how to use that data to actually figure out what your equipment is doing or not doing for you is huge. And we're going to get a little bit more in depth in it in another video here. I think Nick's also potentially going to throw a tree in the middle of the range or something like that, I was told. So thank you for joining me on this one. We'll see you guys in the next one.